Hi everyone, and welcome to Fire on the Mountain. On today's episode, we'll focus on recent developments in building the Augusta Trail, pollen season here in North Carolina, and our statewide voter makeup according to the most recent data.
Our guests this week are immigrant resource and workers advocates Jair Castillo and Hunter Ogletree. So without further ado,
let's light it up.
Cool. Is that good? Henderson County residents will soon have the great honor of enjoying the Augusta Trail, which, when complete, will be a 19.4-mile multi-use greenway along an unused railway corridor, or a rail-to-trail connecting Hendersonville and Brevard. Per the website for the project, this linear park will beckon people of all ages and abilities to reach destinations by walking, running, biking, and wheelchair. And the rail line meanders through fields and forests, beside streams, pastures, and country churches, offering a picture book walk through a life nurtured and cradled in the mountains of western North Carolina. The well-received idea is to convert the abandoned rail line into a, quote, new cultural main street, connecting communities, promoting health, enriching the quality of life and the economy for everyone, and it has had quite the rally of support leading up to this moment. Most recently, as of March 15th, the project was able to secure $7.5 million. Transylvania Times reports that this will be in addition to the $600,000 already designated in a state appropriations bill for the developing greenway. The total cost for the design and construction of the Augusta Trail is an estimated $31 million, and news of the money came at the same time that those spearheading the plans came before the Transylvania County Board of Commissioners, asking for a letter of support for a federal grant seeking additional funds for the project. Conserving Carolina and Friends of the Augusta Trail previously worked with the Henderson County Tourism Development Authority to obtain $4.4 million through private campaigns for the first 5 miles of the project, starting in Henderson County. The city of Brevard has partnered with Conserving Carolina and the Dogwood Health Trust to apply for federal money available through Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity, or the RAISE grant program, which helps communities around the country carry out projects that have significant local or regional impacts.
The U.S. Department of Transportation has $1.5 billion in grant funding through the RAISE discretionary grant program. So far, these have included highway and bridge repairs, rail-to-trail projects, and bus lanes across the country.
The most recently elected Brevard Mayor, Maureen Koploff, said, quote, "We've put together what I think is a tremendous team working on that grant application." Her remarks to the Transylvania Board of Commissioners Monday included her saying that, quote, "It has to be submitted by April 15th, so that's a very short time frame. But we have tremendous support and are very confident that our package this year is going to be extremely competitive." So that's on the Brevard and Transylvania County side of things. In most recent news on our side of the project here in Henderson County, the city of Hendersonville is seeking public input on a grant project proposal that could connect the Augusta Trail to the Ocklawaha Greenway and 7th Avenue right here in town.
That would be amazing. The public is invited to attend a drop-in meeting on Tuesday, March 29th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the City Operations Center at 305 Williams Street. Since we have a week delay here on Fire on the Mountain podcast, that means that this meeting is tomorrow afternoon or 4 afternoons from now for our Patreon donors. This meeting will provide grant project details, allow participants to provide feedback, and show their local support for improving bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. The grant proposal is titled Above the Mud, and per the city website, it includes 3 improvements to bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure in the city. Those are as follows. Construct a new greenway along Mud Creek to connect the Ocklawaha Greenway to the Augusta Trail, to improve a frequently flooded section of the greenway, and to construct streetscape improvements on 7th Avenue from the railroad to the greenway. A virtual participation option will be provided for the meeting. However, the community is encouraged to attend in person to best view the project maps, interact with staff, and enjoy refreshments.
So I know I'm going to be attending in person, and I'm definitely looking forward to showing my support for this project. And maybe if you're listening to this, we'll bump into each other at the Operations Center. Additional information on the proposed grant project, including virtual participation details, available at www.hvlnc.gov/above the mud. There's also a map of the proposed changes available, which we'll be posting on our Instagram at FireMTNPOD. So Some much coveted good news amidst a lot of loud and awful sounds. Our city clearly cares deeply about the connection our community feels to our surrounding environment here, and tracking well with public input and participation, they're making proactive steps to engage the community and preserve those connections.
For the first time in history, unaffiliated voters make up the majority of North Carolina's voting pool. Governor Roy Cooper says, quote, "I think there is just a general sense that people are done with politics the way that we do them today, that the two parties aren't representing people. In this world where everything is politicized, from where you eat for dinner to the kind of beer you drink, it makes some sense," Cooper says. So the data that we have now indicates that as of March 19th, there are over 7 million registered voters in North Carolina. Of those registered voters, 2,192,073 are Republican, 2,496,434 are Democratic, and 2,503,997 are unaffiliated. This is important in our state because it has open primaries. That means that voters can choose which party's primary they want to vote in. It also means that if you're a candidate, you can't campaign in an echo chamber because there's a chance that somebody who belongs to a party which you don't represent will be able to vote in your primary. As we learn more information about the way that unaffiliated voting affects voting trends, we'll be sure to keep you updated here on the podcast.
Since today's the first day of spring, I prepped a whole story about pollen and how climate change impacts pollination and the allergy season here where we are. But this morning, I read an article that honestly, Gina, changed a lot for me. Scientists around the world are stunned by what happened over the weekend in Antarctica. And because of the mysterious nature of this event, we've actually decided it needs more time than we have here today to produce. So we've decided to publish it separately as bonus material for our monthly donors. $5 or more a month will give our listeners early access to episodes. However, bonus material like this story and others, outtakes, and early access is given to our second-tier donors of $10 or more. Those folks can expect the full, fascinating story of what's happened in the Arctic in this week's bonus content. And just briefly before I jump into this, the truth is that there's an aspect to doing this that I never understood before. And that's sharing the news with commentary, but without being an alarmist or a sensationalist, which neither of those are things that I strive to be, which makes sharing extreme stories like this difficult for me to personally navigate. But we invite y'all to check it out. So like I was saying, today is the first day of spring. And for folks like me, that means it's the first day of a daily battle with pollen allergies. However, a recent study on ecological trends offers some interesting insights on what we can expect in the years to come. Climate scientists at the University of Michigan looked at 15 different plant pollens in the United States and used computer simulations to calculate how much worse allergy season will likely get by the year 2100. So as the world warms, allergy season will start weeks earlier and end many days later, with levels that could as much as triple in some places, according to a new study published Tuesday, March 15th, in the journal Nature Communications. A peer-reviewed release from The Lancet in October 2021 states that there is, quote, no safe global temperature rise from a public health perspective, and additional warming will affect every U.S. region. Today's adverse health impacts of climate change are varied and widespread. All of us have been or likely will be affected by climate change, with some hazards more easily recognizable than others. Interestingly enough, some 40% of American children suffer from pollen allergies, and 25 million Americans have asthma. The implications of an earlier and earlier pollen season as our climate warms will be the economic impact that missed days from work, like mine a couple weeks ago, and incurred medical costs will have on our local economy as they happen earlier in the year and for longer periods of time. The truth is that the historical trends of longer and more severe pollen seasons are likely to continue and driven by climate change. And this will absolutely have substantial health consequences in allergies and asthma for Americans. So get that tea brewing, buy that local honey, support those local apiaries, get those gummies, and do whatever you gotta do to stay healthy because, y'all, the pollen is here and there is more on the way.
This episode is brought to you by Oklawaha Brewing Company. Oklawaha Brewing is a nano brewery and taproom committed to brewing high-quality beer in a vibrant atmosphere and is conveniently located in downtown Hendersonville. Drop in sometime and check it out.
first we want to say thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys for having me.
We hope that we can use this time to shed some light on topics that are important to the Latinx community that you work with here in Hendersonville. Before we begin, we wanted to take a minute to actually talk about any preferences that you have as far as gender in the language. So referring to people as Latino, or Latinx, and if you have a preference that you'd like for us to use.
I think it's a whitewash word to put us in a bucket where we don't have individual people. It's just Latinx and that's it. It doesn't matter. Like, I understand that LGBT is about being included, but I feel like on this one, it's all about like just bunching up people in one word and that's that. And I don't know, something about it just doesn't sound right. And I say that not only like because it's weird to pronounce it, but also like if you wanted to leave gender out of it, you can with the Spanish language. It's actually fairly easy. Yeah, we do have the él, ella type of deal, but like you can say Latino, but just because it's Latino, it's not specific to male. It's also a gender neutral word. So it's like, why are you creating a solution for a problem that does not exist? But I don't care about it really. I can call it whatever.
Well, that makes sense, though, and I think that it's important to get that perspective from native speakers.
Yeah.
Because sitting on the outside looking in, if somebody says to me, as somebody who speaks and loves and knows this language intimately, it doesn't mean anything when you guys do that.
Yeah.
That's valuable to know.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that it kind of erases some of the nuance and meaning of the language because of what you're saying about the potential for it to be gender neutral. It doesn't have to mean it's masculine about men.
Like I remember like back in the early 2000s, and this may be one of those Mandela effect type of things, but I remember people actually being mad about being called either Hispanic or Latino, and now all of a sudden we're okay with everybody calling us Latinx, and I'm like, I don't think so, and most of the people that I have talked to, which again, and I will say it, but they may not be LGBT, they may not be like into the new language or stuff, but there's very few people that I've actually talked to, and even on the context of them being LGBT, where they're like, yeah, man, I feel like that word represents me. Most of the people, they're just like, at this point, man, it's whatever, but I don't feel like it's me, so.
Also, it could just be like everything else, just relative to region, if we're in a more metropolitan U.S. area, like somewhere in L.A. where there's a lot more,
for sure,
push for inclusive language or something. Maybe it's a bigger deal there. But
true. We do live in Hendersonville. I like to pronounce that. Or enunciate it when I'm people are thinking like there's some huge issues. I'm like, bro, we live in Hendersonville, man. Come on, Hendersonville, really. Chill.
So let's start by introducing you. Actually, before I do that, I just want to say for the folks that are listening, this is the first interview that we've done with new microphones and like using the mixer and everything. So we're trying to improve, incrementally.
The quality
the quality is gradually improving. So
nice.
Some of this audio might be terrible. Some of it's going to be, I'm sure, just absolute solid gold. But
we're both doing our best to not squawk laugh into our microphones this time.
Yes, because Liz
Fournier
said that our laugh in the first episode was piercing.
That's right, Liz. I told on you.
That's always nice to hear.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/Fire on the Mountain, Liz. That's how you can make it up.
Okay, so let's start by introducing you, Jair. What's your background? Who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm just your regular average dude. Nothing really, extraordinary about me. Born in Mexico City, came to the United States when I was 12 years old. Illegally, I didn't actually hop the fence. I went under it. But still, I think it counts. Don't take away from it. Obviously, that wasn't my choice. I was 12 years old. There's only many things that people that age can do, and living by yourself at that age was not a choice for me. So, anyways, after that, been living in Hendersonville for again since 12 years old. I'm 35, 23 years old, so most of my life now has been here in the United States. And as much as I hate it, it's home. And I don't mean it like in a hateful way. It's just, I say it because I can't go back home. You know what I'm saying? That's the reason why. I can't easily go home and travel. So this is my home, whether I like it or not, until something changes.
Whenever non-immigrant people engage with immigrants or first-generation Americans, it's not always your right to know the story, and that like there's a certain presumption that I've noticed a lot of like typically even like really like liberal Americans have this like mentality where there's like this entitlement and like tell me your story, like I want to, and it leads to like co-opting your story in order to like help their political agenda or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like you're not entitled to know that.
Yeah.
You know?
But you know what? I love telling people, dude. I don't know why, to be honest. Like that's one of those core memories that's stuck in my head. That whole process of doing that, life changing. You know, so it's one of those things that I love talking about, because it kind of gives people a perspective of what people go through when they go through that, and you know, it kind of should give you a perspective of what it takes for people to make those decisions to go through that, and also because, to be honest, it was fun. And it was fun, man. I was a kid. I didn't know any better, man. So it was fucking exhilarating.
Yeah, it's a fun adventure for a 12-year-old.
It kind of was, you know. And it wasn't bad until it got bad, you know. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like people shouldn't be too like. I don't want to tell you my story, but I definitely understand. And you brought up a good point. Sometimes people just kind of like, you know, just use that for their, I guess, advantage without actually giving a fuck about the actual story.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
Well, that and safety culture too is just like, you know, a lot of people have to understand that people come to this country under duress or for any number of reasons that require giving you the most minimum amount of information.
True. Yes.
You know, so it's like no disrespect to you,
Yeah.
but also understand that like
I can't.
stories
Yeah.
are complicated.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, and you know, I mean, you know, thankfully your story wasn't like that. It was just, you know, I guess my parents didn't saw a future in Mexico, and they decided that it was gonna be the U.S. or die trying or something along the way, and they were like, yeah, well, you know, fuck it, we're gonna risk it all, and we did it. And I can't really tell you whether we're better off, but I can tell you that at least, you know, I've had a pretty good life, and the quality of life has definitely, you know, been better since when I was in Mexico. So something good happened with that whole thing. But yeah, you know, like, you know, we had a house, we had our own land, we had our own business, and we sold it all. We gave all that up to come here. My mom actually tried to get a visa. Again, you know, and when I say we had a house, obviously it wasn't like a fucking mansion, you know, but it had a roof, and you know, we had bathrooms and shit, and you know, we had our own business. You know, we made tortillas and stuff. So you know, if anything, we could at least eat, you know, tortillas for the day, and we wouldn't starve. But you know, when my mom went to do the whole process, that you know, it wasn't enough. So that's when we were like, all right, so I guess we're gonna do it the hard way, and we did. Yeah.
So you now work for El Centro. How did that come about? What's that experience like? What's can you tell us a little bit about what you do for the organization? So
El Centro has actually been a part of my life longer than I've been part of theirs, if that makes any sense. But you know, like they had a presence here in Hendersonville since I was in high school, and probably before then I just probably didn't notice, because again, you know, I don't have a vehicle, and I didn't, you know, went outside the house. But you know, they reached out in high school through a thing called the AIM Club, which I believe is still going on in some of the schools. And there were some people, man, specifically like Kenna Sommer, Milton Butterworth, and those two guys, man, just made AIM Club so much fun. They taught us a lot. They showed us a lot. They took us to a bunch of like conferences, El Pueblo, like that's an organization from Raleigh. I think it's fairly big, and they used to actually be the host of M Club, and so they took us to a couple places. So I've been around with El Centro ever since that, because again the employees for El Centro were like our chaperones and the people that would take us, the M Club, around, to do all this type of activities. So even when I wasn't in high school, I still had friends that worked for El Centro. And El Centro has always been not the perfect organization, but I would kind of say close to it. And obviously, like when a business fails, obviously it's not the business, it's the people that fail it, right? So any discrepancies, and I would say like this, any discrepancies or any like issues that people have had with El Centro, it's not the whole organization as it is. It's maybe just a couple people that probably were not really out there doing the job. And I say this because there's been a lot of talk, especially now that I work for them, about us at one point not being open to the community, not being able to give people services. And that's, I guess, maybe at one point it was kind of true. Again, I wasn't working for them, but I know for a fact that now the people that are working for El Centro, they care about the community. They want to engage the community. They want to help out. They're there. I work in their offices, so I see Gabby Mendez is the one that's most of the times there. Kenna, obviously, she does I can't remember her position, but she does work there. But there's always somebody there that you can reach to nowadays. But yeah, it's been going on for at least 15 or so years. So eventually I saw that they had a job posting, and I decided to call them, and it worked out.
Hell yeah.
So what are some issues that you see either through your work or through your personal life that seem to be persistent or constant for the Latino community, specifically here in North Carolina?
Well, one of the things that El Centro kind of focuses on, maybe a little more so, or maybe because they've done it the longest, is the immigrant community, because Hendersonville is one of those places where every summer you have a bunch of people from Florida that come over here to grow crops and pick crops, depending on the time of the year. So there's always that community that, like around, I think it's like June, July, like people are waiting for them, with, toothbrushes and toiletries and food and resources and stuff like that. So they're always there consistently, helping out that community. So it may not be specific to like a group of like a part of town, but it's a community that does come to town. They live here, they work here. It's part of the community for however long you want to call them, but that's always a constant, and El Centro is always there helping them out, along with other organizations. Of course, we can't all do it alone.
The depth of the community involvement that the migrant community has is wild. It's even, I taught at a Head Start that was specifically for the children of migrant families. And the teachers in that program knew all the children and all their families because they came back every year. Yeah. All the children know and recognize each other. Yeah. They write each other letters. They call each other. They're all buddies. Yeah. It's everybody's stays at everybody else's house. Yeah. It seemed to me like a really tight-knit community.
And man, it really is. To be honest, it really is. I'm not going to lie, man. Those guys are giving my respect every time, man, because they do a work that, man, I mean, maybe if I was like really struggling, I would do. But dude, those guys do it willingly. They know, and obviously, it's a business, right? So it has to pay. But this is the type of job that you make as much as you want to, and people work hard, man. It's back-breaking stuff, and the amount of work that these people put in, man, it's incredible, man. Like it's super crazy.
And women too, and pregnant women too. Like if you're pregnant and it's season, you're working and you're pregnant. That's it.
And obviously, we do have, laws about children working and stuff, and we don't want to promote children working. That's why sometimes, we want to, we reach out to this group of people and let them know that, hey, your kid doesn't have to work. We could, keep him in school, give him a chance to do better, you know, and not that the job that they're doing is bad. Sometimes, believe me, man, the money that they make it's great. But whenever you have a huge family to, you know, to provide for, then it doesn't really, you know, give you that much freedom to do more things. Obviously, you know, the people that run the businesses are the ones that make money. But again, you know, most of the times when you see kids working is because they want to help their family. And, you know, like my family has been a part of that. I remember that whenever we came to the United States, you know, my brother, the oldest one, his name is Luis, you know, I believe in my heart he could have been a professional soccer player. You know, this guy had the skills, he had the speed, he had the drive, he loved the sport with a passion, and he decided to, you know, give that up, you know, to help the family. So I will always owe him for that. You know, that's such a great, like, what do you call it, sacrifice that you have to make, and you know, like, not letting a person realize their potential sucks, you know, especially when you see it in them, you know. So that's what we're trying to do with these kids, you know, like if we see them working, you know, we want to let them know that, you know, there's things that they can do to better their life. And again, I'm not saying that doing this type of job is bad or it's degrading. You know, you can love this job and make a good living out of it, but you're not. That's not the only thing that you can do. You know, you have choices. So we try to let people know that, you know, you have choices. Your kid has choices. You know, if you're doing this job to maintain a family, but you know you want to make sure that your kid goes to school and college and gets a better degree, you know, we can help you out with that. So, you know. No, I think I heard Hunter. I think he's here.
Is he coming?
Yeah, late, but yeah, I think I heard him.
So, on that note, does he know where we are? Does he know what room we're in?
I think so. I think Ricardo knows.
Yep, I hear him.
Let me open this. Come on, man.
Hi.
What's up? How's it going?
It's going.
Yeah, and this is going to be a genuine introduction because we don't know each other. So, I'm Gina. It's nice to meet you. I'm assuming you're Hunter.
Yes.
Cool. You found the place.
I was I work part-time, I guess, with an organization called the Western North Carolina Workers Center.
Okay.
And it's sort of interesting because it's a nonprofit, but we don't do like direct services per se, but we do what we call organizing. So we organize to build power among workers and we're mostly focusing on like Latino immigrant workers. So this concept of like building power, so that they are able to address, you know, issues that play out in their workplaces on their own.
Yeah, so like workplace solidarity to make
Yeah.
changes and to leverage their people power.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, for real.
Workers unite.
To be honest, man, like whenever I hear this guy talk, which we usually don't talk about work, or like whenever we hang out, you know, it really doesn't involve work, and I guess because, you know, we do it and
do it all day.
You know, but this guy, man, he's super passionate. One of the most legitimate persons I have known in my life. A like for real, like somebody to look up to, man. I love this guy with a passion.
I'm gonna just drop your name all over town and see if anybody has a bad thing to say.
For real, I would give a person money, $100. Bring me a bad thing to say about Hunter, and I will show you how that is your fault.
That's no.
For real.
No, but it's like the reason I was late because we had a meeting. So a meeting with the Workers Center because we're like we have a group of workers. You know, I call them workers, but they're like that's what we like. They're our members of the organization, but they're preparing to give like a workshop, like a training workshop. So that's what we do. It's like that's sort of the model that we use is just preparing. Instead of me, you know, standing up and giving a workshop on, like, workplace health and safety, like, it's obviously better if it comes from the people that are actually
in the workplace.
Going through it, you know, so, like...
So do y'all work in conjunction with any unions, or...?
We, like, direct relationships, no, but we do work together with some, like, the state-level union.
Okay.
Because one of the things we're trying to do is like pressure the Department of Labor in Raleigh to like freaking do better, like do their job, like
sure.
Yeah.
especially around COVID issues, because you know, the population that we serve has been disproportionately affected and like just screwed over, and one of the main reasons why is because the Department of Labor doesn't do their job. If they would enforce what's already on the books, they wouldn't be in. So like we work with the AFL-CIO like to help push some of those, like, do your job, man.
Brief overview of El Centro itself.
Okay.
What it is, what it does, why it's here.
So I guess the best thing I would say is El Centro is a resource provider. You know, sometimes they don't have it in-house, but they'll get you somebody that can, right? So whatever programs they have in-house, you know, like sometimes they have, I just kind of started doing this type of work, right? So I'm learning as I'm going, but you know, like higher education, or like citizenship stuff, or if somebody's looking for a immigration lawyer, or you know they're having an abusive household and they need some help with that. They need some food, or they need housing, or they need medicine, or healthcare. El Centro will go above and beyond whatever we can to try to get it to you, help you get it. Most of the time it's free. To be honest, I don't think I've ever been charged for anything on services that, like they can do translations, apostilles, apostillados, and other stuff like that. They help you, fill out documents and stuff. Like recently we had the Mexican consulate come over to Asheville, and so they didn't want us to advertise that they were coming, because they do get overwhelmed, right? And understandably so, they get overwhelmed. But again, it's their fault. I will say that it's the consulate's fault. Anyways,
because I found out about that from El Centro's Facebook, so I know you'll advertise a little bit.
So we try to tell people, about their resources and stuff like that. So that's what we do. We were helping people get appointments with the consulate. Which again, if there's anybody from the Mexican consulate by any chance that they're listening to this, you guys suck, man. You guys need to do a better job, like for real.
I don't want to bash another country's consulate, but I think like people have protested like in front of the Mexican consulate in Raleigh.
Yeah.
So, Hunter, what's your experience with El Centro?
El Centro, El Centro's been around since I came back to Hendersonville back like 15 years ago or something. But I think it's always been like just a positive resource, a trusting resource in the community that people can access, and so they've been around for at least 15 years, so that tells you something.
That's the same year I threw like at least 15 years.
So specifically with what you're doing, some of the work that you're doing, we were talking about voter outreach.
Yeah.
So in 2020 in North Carolina, it looks like that the Latino voter turnout was about 55% out of 227,869.
Okay.
So
I'm surprised.
Is it in what way?
In a positive way, I feel like I feel like we're doing better, but I see at least more conversations than before, like way more.
Well, statistically, you're right that the statistics do show that the Latino voter turnout has been higher per eligible Latino voter. So it used to be closer to like 40%.
Yeah.
And it hovered around there for a long time.
Yeah, I think there was a time where it kind of stayed stuck. So, and again, I say because I guess maybe the majority of the Latino people that are here are the immigrants, and we come with that whole or the politics in my country didn't work, I don't want to be involved in politics that won't work again. And like we said, it's kind of like a service. If you're not looking for the service, you don't want to hear about it. And it's also one of those things that the way that now politics are being talked and stuff, and the aggressiveness, it makes it even less appealing for those people to want to get engaged. Why would they want to get engaged in screaming matches, or why would they want to get engaged with somebody that calls them a rapist, or that they bring drugs and shit and why do I want to involve just
Right.
leave me alone, let me work, and again that doesn't help, but
Or worse, why would they want to be used as like pawns?
Yeah,
to like get votes, and I'm talking bad about both political parties.
Of
like,
course, yes,
I mean,
yes.
like case in point, like right now it's playing out on TV, and not to get into like the war, but like like you have white people fleeing a country and being welcome with open arms. And I just read they're coming Ukrainians are coming through Mexico and like automatically let in. No, but we've had just as bad of refugee crisis around the world, if not worse, in Africa,
Haiti.
in Asia, and there's no like if the refugees are black and brown, there's definitely, and the people that are controlling that right now are Democrats. So like
Even the Nigerian refugees from Ukraine are treated
Yeah,
differently.
yeah.
yeah. So
White
like I
Ukrainians.
yes, I think everybody should be registered to vote that's eligible, but we need to, the political parties, the way they stand right now, shouldn't be using a specific demographic as just pawns. Just use them when they need them, and then create policies that,
And I'll give you a super quick local, I guess, tip or not tip, but like little notice. Not a fun fact, because it's not fun at all. But I believe it's the current sheriff of Henderson County, pretty much got elected, or at least got a good part of the immigrant or I guess Mexican American or the Latino voting community to vote for him, because he was saying that he was gonna get rid of the 287G law. Where is that law right now? Still in the fucking, it's still being enacted. So you don't have to be a president, man, to play us like pawns. People do it locally. This guy did it, this guy did it. And then when we call him out, all of a sudden, now we can be part of it because we called them out on their bullcrap, So
Yes, and it was one of very few platform issues that he ran on that separated.
exactly. I think he kind of pushed that fairly hard, So everybody was like, yeah, man, hell yeah, somebody. And look at,
Look at
and
it now.
yeah, man. So that's how it goes with minorities, man. They only care about us when it's time to get some votes, when it's time to get some people in power, man. But it's always the people that once they're in power, they completely disregard the community. They completely disregard the private citizen, because now it's all about them and their money and their fucking lobbying friends and how they can get paid for doing nothing. And it must be nice for somebody. Not for me, that's for fucking sure.
it makes your job a lot harder to convince people to register to vote if they don't want to put up with.
Yeah. I mean, like sometimes, man, like when I see people that can vote and don't vote, and like I want to talk to them about it, and I look at their disgust as soon as I ask them, "Hey, are you registered to vote?" Like they, get away from me. And I'm like, damn, man, like. But help out your community, though, if you can. But help out your community. But we understand why it's hard to be involved in politics.
So speaking about helping in the community, what can we do? We being the proverbial we, the community in general. What can we do to support the Latinx community? Or no, that is we. That question's for us specifically.
The royal we.
Is it the royal? Is it for us, or is that like a?
It's just
So, what can we do to support the Latino community as advocates for change? What's something realistic that folks can do right now in this moment in Henderson County?
You want to take that, Hunter? Because I feel like you're way more involved. My answer is going to be a little more like street, so I want to give you the chance to say it.
Answer, Bert.
Something that's not performative, like something that can actually be help.
I think, and I'm not sure, like, I think just providing space and, because I'm of the opinion that, you know, especially when you're talking about allies, or specifically white allies, because, you know, I think the question is great, but it you know, it's probably not directed toward, maybe it's directed towards the Latino, but it's almost asking, like, what can the community do? So I think, you know, centering the voices of the Latinx community, and not only centering those voices, but listening to them and taking into account, you know, the solutions that they come up with for their own issues that they're facing. And I think that that's a challenge here in Henderson County among, you know, government officials, among different institutions in the community, that you know, we might talk, you know, the diversity game and really try to sell ourselves as being open, but at the end of the day, like, there's a difference between being having diversity and actually valuing and bringing to the table the folks that you're sort of trying to bring in order to say you're being diverse. So I think just providing that voice, but and I know that, you know, I don't know if that's like a concrete answer.
That's perfect. And then,
like,
yeah, that brings up the point too, that like the reason that Raph and I just went so back and forth about we is because what did we mean by we?
Yeah.
And the answer is different,
Yeah.
depending on whether we're asking a bunch of gringas like myself what we can do to help, or if we're talking to people who live and work and exist within the community already. If somebody's an outsider, the way that you help is going to be different, and that's okay, and it should be acknowledged. And it is, I think, generally about listening and
Yeah.
making space and just...
Yeah, I think Hunter hit it right on the nail, man. Like again, perfectly put. And give us the space to be us. Give us the space to succeed. Give us the space to become the business owners that we want to be. Give us the space to go to the colleges that we want to go to. Give us the space to pursue our fucking happiness.
Well, I think that's all the time we got, unless, Hunter, you have something you'd like to say.
No, I mean,
No pressure.
I think these conversations are important, and it sounds like the podcast is a good medium to get those conversations out there.
Yeah,
Cause like,
Well, thank
I
you
mean,
so much for
like,
your time too. Thanks for being the people who are
especially
on the
in
front lines
Hendersonville,
doing
like,
it.
because I grew up here, and like just to see like the change. Although I think we still got a long way to go, but I
Yeah.
think it's things like this that that slowly but surely, you know, affect that change. So
Jair Castillo, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having
Hunter
me.
Ogletree, thank you so much for being here.
yeah, a little late, but sorry.
Better late than never.
Yeah.
And until next time.
Hey, thank you guys for having us, and
Thanks
yeah,
y'all so much.
we'll come back anytime you guys want.
Thank you. One of our sponsors today is the Honey House of Vintage, owned by our dear friend Mariah. The Honey House of Vintage features clothing and accessories from the 1950s to 2000 for all styles, subcultures, and body types. Open noon to 5 p.m. Tuesday through Saturday. Light tailoring and alterations and consignment available by appointment. Find us on Facebook or call 828-388-5373 for more info. Mention the ad for 10% off purchase. This is the part of the show where we shamelessly leverage our millennial identities in order to bring some levity to the heavy stuff we tend to cover. But honestly, this segment might be a little heavy too. Sorry.
Well, what's the T9 word, Bird?
The T9 word today is TIL. Today I learned as I was looking through several options for the segment that I would be able to virtually attend a Planned Parenthood event at which Gloria Steinem was scheduled to be the keynote speaker. I was distracted by this and the confirmation hearing of Judge Ketanji Brown as I thought about what I wanted to talk about today. As Ms. Steinem spoke, I was in a room full of women, and we listened to her stoke the fires of the feminism that we all grew up with. She talked about Ms. Magazine, she talked about women's lib, and she talked about contraception and rights to our own bodies. We were brought to tears, we laughed out loud, and we felt the power of sisterhood. When asked about how we, as a feminist movement, can go forward from here, Ms. Steinem replied that we need a paradigm shift. She said, quote, "I think it would be helpful, perhaps, if we recognize that Native American and African American women are way more likely to be feminists than white women. The very first public opinion poll of what was then called the women's lib movement was in the 1970s. And actually, black women were twice as likely to support it than white women were." Steinem continues, "The thing that worries me is that it's seen as a fundamentally white movement trying to be inclusive when it's actually the other way around. It bothers me because it's sort of this ridiculous idea that white women own the movement. Shirley Chisholm was the first person who took the white male-only sign off the White House door, and that was in 1970. At the same time as Ms. Steinem's address, Judge Ketanji Brown was being handed a barrage of obscene, racist, and sexist questions that she was forced to answer. These questions came largely from white men who have an agenda against her, and Judge Brown responded with dignity and grace. One of the saddest parts of this confirmation hearing to me has been that we never got to celebrate her nomination. We only got to defend her. Here's hoping that we can celebrate her as we finally let out our breath when these hearings are over." A final word from Ms. Steinem seemed especially appropriate for a reminder. Emma Goldman said, "If I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution. So here's your reminder to dance, celebrate, sing, lick stamps, knock on doors, create community however you can." And that's your T9 segment. Next week, our guest is local Black historian and activist Crystal Cawley, a native of Hendersonville. And we'll take a break from business as usual to share our experience at the city's grant proposal meeting.
We'd also like to give a huge shout out to our newest Patreon patron, S.J. Avery. We're so grateful for your support. And if you'd like to support our show, you can become a patron at patreon.com/Fire on the Mountain.
Thank you all so much for listening.